Alison has painted a portrait of Gronia. Please be seated. And they will present it to the synagogue later. And Alison she was winner of a competition organized by the Holocaust Memorial Day with the London School of Drawing. It's a London School of Drawing. Yeah?
It's a Royal
Royal Drawing School. So thank you for lighting this candle. We read together on page 2. Blessed is the march consumed in kingly flame. Blessed is the flame that burns in the secret fastness of the heart. Blessed is the heart of the strength to stop its beating for honor's sake. Blessed is the march consumed in kingly flame. So tonight we're going to read testimonies, memories, poetry of people who lived through these dark days. Each country has its own way to remember the Shoah, and the Shoah, Yom HaShoah was instituted in 1951 by the Knesset in Israel as a way to remember first the uprising in the Warsaw Ghetto. So then it became, in the Jewish world, a place to remember specifically what happened to millions of Jews. So, for example, in my country, in France, in the 80s, a liberal Rabbi Daniel Farid, instituted in the 80s a reading of convoys, of a list of people who were sent to Auschwitz. So there are 76 convoys, trains sent from France to Auschwitz, and because the German administration was so efficient, we have a list of the people who were sent there, and we read their names for 24 hours non-stop on Yom HaShoah, and it's a very moving experience. So we have two readers, I think, yes.
As the Jews were pushed into the ghettos, food was ever harder to obtain. Young children were often those who found it easiest to get food. Small and fast, they were able to get in and out where others couldn't, as this poem shows. Past walls, past guards, through holes, ruins, wires, fences. Impudent, hungry, obstinate, I slip by. I run like a cat, at noon, at night, at dawn. In foul weather, a blizzard, the heat of the sun. 100 times I risk my life. I risk my childish neck.
Under my arm, a sackcloth bag. On my back, a torn rag. My young feet are nimble. In my heart, constant fear. But all must be endured. All must be borne, so that you, ladies and gentlemen, may have your fill of bread tomorrow.
through walls, through holes, through brick. At night, at dawn, by day. Daring, hungry, cunning, I move silently, like a shade. If suddenly the hand of fate reaches me at this game, 'twill be the usual trap life serves.
You, mother, don't wait for me any longer. I won't come back to you. My voice won't reach that far. Dust of the streets will cover the lost child's fate. Only one grim question the still face asks. Mummy, who will bring your bread tomorrow? A little garden, fragrant and full of roses. The path is narrow, and a little boy walks along it. A little boy, a sweet boy, like that growing blossom. When the blossom comes to bloom, the little boy will be no more. We are called unto life, our destiny uncertain. Yet we offer thanks for what we know, for health and healing, for labour and repose, for renewal of beauty in earth and sky, for that blend of human hope which inspires compassion, and for hope that turns our promise into life.
Let's say together, we praise you, Eternal One, our God, sovereign over the universe, whose word brings on the evening, whose wisdom opens heaven's gates, whose understanding changes times and seasons, and whose will sets the stars in their courses in the day. You make day and night, rolling light away from darkness, and darkness from light. You make day pass and bring on the night, and separate day from night. You rule the host of heaven. We praise you, O God, whose word makes evening fall.
Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו, בשוכבנו ובקומנו, נשיח בחוקיך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגה יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסור ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע Adonai
ואהבת
את אדוני אלוהיך, בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך ובדרכך ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך.
וגשמתם לאות
על ידיך, והיו נצצות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
למען
תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Please be seated.
You who live secure in your warm houses, who return at evening to find hot food and friendly faces, consider whether this is a man who labours in the mud, who knows no peace, who fights for a crust of bread, who dies at a yes or a no. Consider whether this is a woman without hair or name, with no more strength to remember, eyes empty and womb cold as a frog in winter. Consider that this has been, I command these words to you, engrave them on your hearts, when you're in your house, when you walk on your way, when you go to bed, when you rise. Repeat them to your children. Or may your house crumble, disease render you powerless, your offspring avert their faces from you.
Łódź renamed Litzmannstadt after annexation, and the second largest population of Jews after Warsaw, 223,000 people, 1/3 of the population. A ghetto was created on the northern edge of the city, to which the Germans drove Jews from other parts of the city, closing it off on the 30th of April 1940. 164,000 Jews were forced into an area of 4 square kilometers. In 1941 and 1942, a further 38,500 Jews were deported to the ghetto from the Reich, Bohemia and Moravia, and nearby towns. From the diary of Rebekka Wedell. I'm sitting at the school now, and like all my friends, I'm waiting for the soup. It is snowing outside, and the classroom hasn't been heated. I'm writing, or rather scribbling. My left hand is in a muff. I'm sleepy. I'm full of remorse. Maybe if Abrahamek had looked well, they wouldn't have taken him. He was such a good kid. How many times I was short of bread. He would give me his, and how many times that's why he looked bad. I'm full of remorse. I think I have a reader here. I think it's reading, yes.
It was on the 19th of April, 1943, the day... No, you want me to start there?
On page 10. Oh, you're on page 12, sorry. Who is on page 10? Okay, so, yes. Yes, can you come up, please? Yes.
Remember, Zachor, do not forget, Lo Tishtach. On this day, we remember the most devastating episode of our history. From year to year, it recedes a little further into the past, but the magnitude of it remains beyond our comprehension, and the pain of it beyond consolation. All we know for certain is that we have a duty to remember for the sake of those who perished, so that they may not be forgotten. For the sake of those descendants who survived them, so that they may know that they are not alone in their sorrow. For our own sakes, so that we may not be blind to the evil of which human beings are capable, and for the sake of future generations, so that they may consider well what is needed to prevent such a Shoah, such a destruction, from happening again to our people, or to any people. We pledge ourselves to remember. And should the wonder happen, and I live on to see the world illumined with new light, the light of justice, love and peace, I shall surely praise that generation from the depth of my sorrow, from the deepest abyss of my shattered soul. But my wound will not be healed. Its blood will flow as long as my heart beats, as the blood of my brothers flowed till their hearts froze. And even should you, God, in all your mercy, offer me the cup of forgetfulness, I will not touch it. I shall say, forgive me, God. But if I taste the cup of forgetfulness, I will no longer be I. And so, as long as my heart beats, and as long as I know not why you have done all that you have done, I am unable to forget. I am unwilling to forget. Lift ourselves not to forget. It was on the 19th of April 1943, the day before Passover, that the final action in the Warsaw Ghetto began. The fighting groups and ghetto inhabitants barricaded themselves in bunkers and hideouts, their demonstrations of resistance taking the Germans by surprise. The ZOB, Jewish Combat Organization, scattered its positions throughout the ghetto. The ZZW, Jewish Military Union, made up of former Polish army officers, did most of its fighting at Muranowska Square, impeding the Germans' attempts to penetrate their defences. In response, the Germans began to systematically burn down the buildings, turning the ghetto into a fire trap. The Jews fought valiantly for a month until the Germans took over the focal points of resistance. It was the first popular uprising in a city in Nazi-occupied Europe. One of the ghetto fighters, Tovia Bozikovsky, later recalled that day.
Monday, April the 19th, was the day before Passover, the first day of spring. Sunshine penetrated even to the cheerless corners of the ghetto, but with the last trace of winter, the last hope of the Jews had also disappeared. Those who had remained at their battle stations all night were annoyed by the beauty of the day, for it is hard to accept death in the sunshine of spring. As members of DRAW, we were stationed at Nalavskis 33. I stood on the balcony of a building on Nalavskis Genscher with several friends, where we could watch the German troops who stole into the ghetto. Since early dawn, long lines of Germans had been marching. Infantry, cavalry, motorised units, regular soldiers, SS troops, and Ukrainians. I wondered what we could do against such might, with only pistols and rifles, but we refused to admit the approaching defeat. Yitzhak Zuckerman, who represented the ZOB on the Aryan side, was asked what military lessons could be learnt from the uprising. He replied, "I don't think there's any real need to analyse the uprising in military terms. This was a war of less than 1,000 people against a mighty army, and no one doubted how it was likely to turn out. This isn't a subject for study in a military school. If there's a school to study the human spirit, there it should be a major subject. The important things were inherent in the force shown by Jewish youth after years of degradation, to rise up against their destroyers and determine what death they would choose, Treblinka or uprising." It was on the 15th of April 1945 that British troops entered Bergen-Belsen. They were a concentration camp and in some respects a transit camp, rather than a death camp. As more and more prisoners were packed into the camp, conditions became horrific and disease ran rampant, killing many, including Anne Frank, just a month before liberation.
I have just returned from the Belsen concentration camp, where for 2 hours I drove slowly about the place. I find it hard to describe adequately the horrible things I've seen and heard, but here, unadorned, are the facts. There are 40,000 men, women and children in the camp, German and half a dozen other nationalities, and thousands of them Jews. Of this total, 40,000, 4,250 are acutely ill or are dying of virulent disease. Typhus, typhoid, diphtheria, dysentery are rife. 25,600 are either ill through lack of food or are actually dying of starvation. As we went deeper into the camp and further from the main gate, we saw more and more of the horrors of the place, and I realised that what is so ghastly is not so much the individual acts of barbarism that take place in the SS camps, but the gradual breakdown of civilization that happens when human beings are herded like animals behind barbed wire. Richard Dimbleby, 17th of April 1945, broadcast 19th of April 1946. The BBC did not want to broadcast this. They thought maybe it was exaggerated, maybe inaccurate. But Richard Dimbleby said, "If you don't broadcast this, I will never work for the BBC again." And the BBC broadcast it.
April the 15th, 1945 was like any other day, but not for us. We were reborn on that day. Few of us believed that we should ever survive and see freedom again. It's a strange feeling being reborn at a mature age. Normally, people do not remember the details of the day of their birth, of course, but we do, all the details of that April the 15th. As the wearisome days of our captivity dragged on endlessly, we had lost sense of time and of continuity. Very often we envied those who died in their own homes on their own beds before we were sucked into the bloody cauldron. We were neither alive nor dead in captivity. Our legs moved heavily and our hands performed mechanical function, but there was no spirit in us. Spiritually, we were dead. A new life sprang up from the filth and ashes of the liberated camps. When the British entered Belsen, some of us fainted for joy, and most of us had no strength left to celebrate. Looking back, I don't know myself how we survived and where we took our strength from. The fact is that a new people had arisen on the graves of the martyrs. We survivors will always remember April the 15th as a second birthday, perhaps in a sense a more important one than the first. By Paul Trepman.
(1980). And when I go up as a pilgrim in winter to recover the place I was born and the twin to self I am in my mind, then I'll go in black snow as a pilgrim to find the grave of my Saviour, Yanova. She'll hear what I whisper under my breath. Thank you, you saved my tears from the flame. Thank you, children and grandchildren you rescued from death. I planted a sapling, it doesn't suffice, in your name. Time in its gyre spins back down the flue, faster than nightmares of nooses can ride, quicker than nails, and you, my Saviour, in your cellar you'll hide me, ascending in dreams as a pilgrim to you. You'll come from the yard in your slippers, crunching the snow, so I'll know, again I'm there in the cellar, degraded and low. You're bringing me milk and bread, sliced thick at the edge. You're making the sign of the cross. I'm making my pencil its pledge. Avram Zutzkever, translated from Yiddish by Cynthia Utzik.
Adonai roi lo echsar binot deshe yabitzeni mei menuchot al mei menuchot yenaleni nafshi yeshovev yeshovev yancheni b'maglet tzedek yancheni b'maglet tzedek leman shemo Gam ki ele begetz al mavet lo irara ki ata imadi shivtecha umishan למענה מוני. טהרו לפניי, לפניי, שולחן נגד צורריי, דשנת ושמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה. הר טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. אדוני רואי לא אחסר, אדוני רואי לא אחסר. We're on page 16. We rise and we read responsibly. We remember our 6 million who died when madness ruled and evil dwelt on earth. We remember those of whom we know and those whose very names are lost. We cherish the memory of those who died as martyrs, those who died resisting, and those who died in terror. We mourn for all that died with them, their goodness and their wisdom, which would have done so much to ennoble and enrich humanity. We mourn for the genius and the wit that died, the learning and the laughter that were lost.
We stand in gratitude for the simple, decent lives of those who are the congregation of Israel.
Their spiritual resistance remains as an enduring testimony to a community where light persisted in darkness. Each person was unique, and we remember them all in love and compassion. We salute those who had the courage to stand outside the mob, to save us and to suffer with us. They too are God's witnesses and a source of hope when we are tempted to despair. Because of our people's suffering, may such times never come again, and may their sacrifice not be in vain. In our daily fight against cruelty and prejudice, tyranny and persecution, their memory gives us strength.
El male rachamim, shochen bamromim, ametzei menucha nechona, tachat kanfei hashechina. את נשמות הנכבדים והאהובים שהלכו לעולמם. אנא בעל הרחמים, אשתירם בסתר כנפיך לעולמים. וצרור בצרוך החיים את נשמתם. אדוני הוא נחלתם, וינוחו בשלום Rabam V'noma Amen.
God, full of compassion, grant perfect rest and the wings of your presence among the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament, to the souls of the millions of our people killed because they were Jews. Source of mercy, shelter them forever under your wings, and let their souls be bound up in the gathering of life, eternal one, they are yours. Then we rest in peace. And we read together, if worry and despondency seek our undoing, when we should think about his call in such a way that we carry on the work of ancestors from Sinai, in that we today are truly their children, and in that we are the parents of future generations, then the chain does not break and we gain the strength to carry out nobly the historical responsibility, and to thank God sincerely that his call has become a celebration of our souls. With perfect faith that the time of redemption will come, and though it be long delayed, I will daily await its coming. Continue with Aleinu on page 18. It shall come to pass that your sons and daughters shall prophesy. The old shall dream dreams, and the young shall see visions. Violence shall no more be heard within your land. Devastation or destruction within your borders. They shall not hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain.
For the earth shall be full of the knowledge of God, as the waters cover the sea.
Nation shall not lift up sword against nation,
and never again shall they learn to make war.
But justice shall roll down like waters,
and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. Bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad.
Please be seated. We who lived in concentration camps can remember the men who walked through the huts, comforting others, giving away the last piece of bread. They may have been few in number, but they offer sufficient proof that everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way, and there were always choices to make. Every day, every hour offered the opportunity to make a decision which determined whether you would become the plaything of circumstances, renouncing freedom and dignity to become molded into the form of a typical inmate, or whether you would choose instead to be free. Du gehst dem letzten Weg, wenn Himmeln Bleiene verstellen Bläuete, weil kommen wird noch unser Ausgebänken Schau. Es wird erbeugt von uns so trot mit seinen Do. Kommen wird noch unser Ausgebänken Schau. Es wird erbeugt von uns so trot mir seinen Do. Von Palmenland bis Weizenland von Schnee, wir kommen an mit unser Pein, mit unser Weg, und fallen sich verspritzt von unser Blut, schwarzen Wetter unser Glück, unser Mut, und fallen sich verspritzt von unser Blut, schwarzen Wetter unser Glück, unser Mut. We rise for a special Kaddish for Yom HaShoah on page 21, and we read responsibly. Yitgadal, Yitkadash, Shomei Rabbah, Be'alma divrach chirutei, Be'yamlich malchutei, Be'chayiron u'v'yomechon, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמך הבא מבורך לעלם לעלמי עלמיה, יתבחר וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם, ויתנשא ויתהדר, ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו, לאלה, מכל ביחתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה, ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל בני אדם, ואמרו אמן. Let's read together the next prayer. O God, give us ears to hear and hearts to understand the memories His words bring, so that we might acknowledge their lives and their suffering, their death and their resistance, their survival, their despair and their hopes. May we pledge ourselves to honor their memories by living our lives to the fullest. May we heed these words, I beg you, Do something, learn a dance step, something to justify your existence, something that gives you the right to be dressed in your skin, in your body hair. Learn to walk and to laugh, because it would be too senseless, after all, for so many to die, while you live doing nothing with your life. Please be seated. So before we listen to the choir, this song by Hannah Senesh, I wanted to thank Rebekka and the choir for this music tonight. I wanted to thank also Rabbi Janet, who put together this booklet and printed also additional copies. And thank you all for coming tonight. I think it's we need to do this together. It's very important. And I also wanted to remind you that Friday evening, Yom HaShoah and Yom HaShoah are very close to each other. It's kind of a irony of history. After the Shoah came the state of Israel, after this deep pit of depression we had with the rebirth of a Jewish state. So Friday evening we have a Yom HaAtzmaut celebration here at KLS. We will listen to some stories from our Israeli members. We will discuss with them about what Israel means to us today. We will sing and, of course, eat. Yeah. So if you want to register, is it still time? Yes, I mean, you have to do this by tomorrow because it's Friday and we need to book the food. So please come along for a celebration of Jewish history. And I started with the way French Jews mark the Shoah, where about a third of the French Jewish community perished in Auschwitz. In Britain, of course, it's different, slightly different, because, of course, the Germans never managed to occupy the country, otherwise we wouldn't be here today. In Britain, the memory of the Shoah is very much the memory of Kindertransporten, of these 12,000 kids who came from Germany, Austria, Czechoslovakia. And I was earlier in the car with Bronia, and we talked about when she arrived on the 1st of June 1939, age 11. And I was wondering, I think we can't imagine what it is to be a child and to be torn away from your family, sent into another country where you don't understand the language, without the support of your family. And we know that sometimes some of the kids ended up in very difficult situations as well. So it must have been a really, really difficult experience for these children. But there are today, the British Jewish community is very much formed by the memory and the lives of people like you, Bronia, who came from Europe in 39 and 40. So le dor va dor, from generation to generation, Alison painted you. So you'll talk about later. I'd like to hear your experience about sitting, in front of Alison and having to be quiet, I guess, And we know Bronia, when she says she wants to talk, so it must have been a bit difficult. So we after the last song, I will ask you to come up to the bima to explain a bit your experience. I'll call you, Bronia, together. After Hannah Senesh, oh God, my God, I pray that these things never end, the sound and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crush of the heavens, the prayer of the heart.
We'd like to sing it also, not just in Hebrew, but in English, so please do join in the English if you'd like to, or Hebrew, but certainly.
Glory,
So, Alison and Bronya, can I ask you to come here? Bronya, Alison, can you bring your painting? Do you want to sit? Do you want a chair?
I'm very wobbly, I don't know why, but I'm so I will sit.
Yes, sit.
Thank you.
And, okay, so, can you show Alison your work? Can you explain a bit the context of this painting?
Might be better if I do stand.
Oh, you can sit, Bronya, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, I did it. It was basically a competition that was put on between the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust and the Royal Drawing School, which is a school up in London. I've done some courses with them, and so the two institutions coming together made me really want to do it. And then I thought it would be great to draw Bronya as well, as a fellow KLS member. And yes, Sandra helped us set up that meeting. Yeah, we went round to Bronya's house. We actually talked a lot. I didn't make us sit in silence. Talked the whole way through.
Okay.
And that definitely influenced the drawing.
She's a very clever artist, but I consider myself to be totally unphotogenic.
Thank God it's a painting, huh? No, it's a wonderful. So I went on the website and I looked at the other finalists, and I'm a bit biased, but yours is really the best.
You're prejudiced.
Yeah, I'm prejudiced. I'm sorry, I'm prejudiced.
They're all very different.
Yeah, they're all very different. Yes, yeah, but it's really good. So I understand that you're donating this to KLS. So thank you so much on behalf of the community, the council, which is well represented tonight. I wanted to thank you both for this wonderful gift, which will be there for the next generations of KLS members. So I think a round of applause would be So we are going to stay here in the synagogue, and we are going to bring some teas and coffees, and you can serve yourself. But have you got, Craig? Have you got the hammer and nails to?
Have you decided where it's going to go?
Yes, on the spot. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. But yes, I have got some equipment.
Okay. So while they are bringing the teas and coffees, maybe we can go in the mosaic room, because that's the place where Sandra, some 10 years ago, did this wonderful mosaic. So I think it's, and we've been, someone, I can't remember who donated this drawing from, what's the name of this? Oh, he lived in France. Chagall, yes. I can't. It was you, yeah, it was you. So we've got loads of art. So now if you want to come along, we can actually go into the mosaic room and.
I'm enjoying Chagall didn't pay.
No, Picasso, yeah. Oh, Picasso, my God, yes.